Koombana Bay, at the mouth of the Collie River on the southwest coast of Australia. As dawn breaks, Steve Honor is on his way to work.
8 years ago, I spent my first day out in Koombana Bay looking for dolphins. It took about 3 or 4 months until they started getting used to me in the boat. From that time on, they've accepted me as part of the pods that move around the bay. And it gave me the opportunity really to follow them and find out how they live each day.
Steve has worked with dolphins and killer whales for most of his career. But the bottlenose dolphins of Koombana Bay have now become his life. The detailed picture he's built up of their daily lives may prove vital, he believes, to their survival.
Dolphins seem to have a fairly structured day. First thing in the morning, they're out looking for their breakfast. If a dolphin's found a school of fish, what it might do is do a side slap, which will scare the fish, and it also sounds a signal to other dolphins that might be in the area.
The dolphin's protruding forehead houses a sophisticated sonar receiver. In many of their hunting grounds, like the silt-laden water near the estuary, it's crucial equipment.
In murky water, they really have to use their echolocation because then they can actually tell exactly where the fish are. They can practically find a fish in the middle of the ocean blind. That's how good their sonar is. When there's a good school of fish, the whole community participates in the feeding. And you'll have mothers with calves that might only be a day old really starting to learn how to catch fish from mum. And of course, as it gets older, they drift away from mum and they start to learn how to catch fish themselves.
The calf, too, must learn how to become a useful member of the pod. Without teamwork, the dolphins would starve.
Once the fish is surrounded, individual dolphins will zoom straight in, grab a fish and then come back out, and they'll take their turn really on sentry duty, keeping those fish all together. With the younger dolphins, is to segregate a couple of fish off, and then they'll turn upside down where they can use their echolocation to keep the fish closer to the surface of the water. The dolphins can keep an eye on them and make it easier for them to catch the fish. Feeding can take a couple of hours of intense activity, after which you'll see them wind down, digest their food, and sometimes even rest.
There's a busy port in Koombana Bay, and the number of pleasure craft grows each year. The more Steve Honor and his team of volunteers can find out about the dolphins' daily lives, the better the chance that dolphins and humans can coexist.
We now know that Koombana Bay is a meeting place for 3 pods. You've got the northern pod, and you've got the southern pod, and then you've got the local pod. And they'll all feed, interact in the bay. The local pod that spend most of their time in the bay, in the estuary and up the Collie River, which are made up mainly of mothers, calves, juveniles, were the first group that actually got used to me.
By now, Steve Honor knows many of the dolphins intimately, how they work and how they play. Sometimes he has the sense that their antics are as much for his amusement as for theirs.
After a good feed, some of the juveniles will actually get hold of a fish or an octopus. They'll throw it around, play chase after it, they'll pull its tentacles off, and sometimes you'll even find the whole pod will get involved in that game. The northern pod, after feeding, tend to head back out to sea, and we believe that most of them are males, mainly because of their scarring on the body and the size of them. Their scars come from predators like sharks out in the deep, also fighting amongst themselves after a female, and they'll hit themselves against each other hard, use their teeth to rake mark, even catch the dorsal and large lumps come off it.
One of Steve's favourite characters is a tough old warrior from the northern pod called Sharky. 4 years ago, badly wounded by a shark, he came to Steve for help.
His dorsal was quite ragged, his jaw was dislocated, his tongue was hanging out, he had a big bite mark out of his right pectoral fin. So we had to treat him with antibiotics twice a day for 3 days. He came in all those 3 days, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. Also, we gave him hydrated fish, which is just pure water inside the fish. Because if he's not catching the right amount of fish, he'll be becoming dehydrated. That's where they get their fresh water from the fish. You can tell that the age of a dolphin by their teeth, if you pull one out, it's like a tree ring, and you can actually age them. Well, most of his teeth are still there, but a lot of them are really worn down. You're looking at most probably a dolphin well into his 40s, maybe even into his 50s. Now he's at the stage where he can really get his own fish. He disappears for 3 or 4 months at a time, and then he'll come and visit for a couple of months, and then he'll disappear again. Occasionally he'll come in when he needs more food. Out of the 100% of fish he catches, most probably only gets 80 or 90% of that catch, because he'll lose them, because his mouth doesn't totally close even now. I'd say he's an old soldier of the group and hangs around when there's a bit of trouble, or if there's a sick animal, he's there.
Within the shelter of the bay, the pods often split up. Nurseries of calves and juveniles are supervised by 1 or 2 adults. The tight bonding of the pods, so essential for each member's survival, is reinforced by constant nuzzling and stroking. Friendship can easily lead to courtship. Finky is only 6 years old, too young to mate, but not too young to try. He approaches a mature female from below, rubbing her with his dorsal fin and nose. The female responds, caressing his genitals with her pectoral fin. Finky seems excited, yet uncertain what to do. The female encourages him by displaying her belly, but Finky hesitates. Apparently losing patience, the female breaks away. Finky nerves himself for one last attempt. He tries to mount her, but just then, an older male moves in, and the youngster has to give way. In a few years' time, Finky will be old enough to join the virile young males who form rival gangs around the bay. This group, from the northern pod, have kidnapped a female, herding her away from the protection of her pod. Although biologically ready to mate, she's an unwilling captive. She constantly lifts her belly to avoid copulation. There's a new age notion. The dolphin society is all mutual harmony and gentleness. But it's not always like that.
3 or 4 males and those boys are out in the town. So when a female is at the right time for mating, they'll actually chase the female and revving her up.
Another group of young males arrives on the scene to challenge for the right to mate with the female. These bouts of gang warfare can be vicious. Between skirmishes, each gang withdraws, and its members psych each other up and reassure each other by rubbing their fins together. Then, they return to the fray.
You're looking at an animal that's 150 kilos and they're zooming through the water at maybe 30 or 40 miles an hour, and they're hitting each other at such a rate. If it happened to us, we'd be knocked out, broken ribs, dead.
The older, more experienced adults leave the headstrong boys to it, watching from a safe distance. Finally, the intruders are sent packing, and the victors return to their unfinished business with the hapless female. She continues to resist. Her captors are undeterred. One after another, they mount and penetrate her, again and again. At last, they let her go, and peace returns to the bay.
You normally find after a high energy session that they'll rest. What they do is actually form a group, maybe even 3s or 4s, and you'll find that the 2 in the centre will be a more restful stage than the ones that are on the outside. 2 on the outside are keeping an eye out for predators and what's going on, and then those animals will actually swap over. They need that close community, that commitment for each other to survive. And because they don't actually sleep or rest like us, they can't close down because they've got to remember to breathe. What they tend to do is close down one half the brain, and it's literally only maybe 5-10 seconds at a time, and then they'll swap over sides.
Steve Honor has found that when he joins the dolphins in their own element, his role changes. He's no longer a detached observer of the dolphins' day, but a participant in a conversation without words.
Seeing them in their own environment, face to face, it gives you a whole different perspective. They accept you for what you are and not what they think you should be. That's why I think I prefer working with animals, and especially dolphins, than people, because there's no pretense about it. You don't hit it off with a dolphin every time you go in the water. It doesn't happen like that. Your mind's got to be open, and their mind's got to be open. And if they see that you're there not to do any harm, you're there to learn, they'll let you get on with it.
In fact, there's nothing the dolphins like better than an audience. As the afternoon sea breeze whips up waves in the open bay, a handful of the local pod retire to the sheltered estuary to hunt. The water is murky with silt from 2 rivers. The dolphins use their sonar constantly, not just to locate food, but to avoid getting stranded in the shallows. Digging their rostrums, their bottle noses into the silt, the dolphins search for lunch. Small octopus and flathead. A calf is introduced to new territory and new challenges.
A calf that's only maybe a day old, by the end of the day it's most probably covered 20 to 30 kilometres. Different techniques that mum uses to catch fish or chase fish into the shallows, it all logs into the calf's brain. The calf is building up this library resource all the way through its life. Calves are born towards the end of the summer. About a quarter of those newborns die, sometimes because they're premature and sometimes because of predators or they're a sickly animal to start with.
Steve Honor finds that the hardest part of his job is to watch a mother mourning her dead calf.
When they die, the mother tends to carry them around on their rostrum from 5 to 10 days until the calf actually disintegrates. So she doesn't eat, she doesn't play, she doesn't really do anything but look after that calf. The longer she keeps that calf, the more open she is to attack by sharks, because the blood that will come out of the calf, the bits of decaying matter that comes off the body, leaves a trail of burley. After a period of time, most probably when it's starting to really get bad, is you will find the pod will go actually around it and protect that mother, and they act as a decoy.
The mother's ordeal is made even harder if the bay is busy with boats.
because as soon as the boat comes near, what she'll do is push the calf down to the bottom of the ocean, wait until the boat's gone, and then come up again. The energy that it takes really weakens them.
Steve and his team rarely intervene in the dolphins' lives, but once or twice he's decided to prevent a mother from endangering her own life for the sake of a dead calf.
The shorter that mourning period is, the better success of the mother surviving. So we've got to look at it and we've got to decide, are we going to take that calf away? After we've taken the calf away, we've found that the mothers tend to get back in their daily routine a lot quicker. They seem to get on with living.
Dinner time, and the northern pod heard a school of herring, the second main catch of the day. In the deep, clear water, they rely much less on echolocation, but keeping the herring together is still a complex job, and the dolphins' hard work can all too easily be wasted.
They've got to eat 8 to 14 kilos of fish a day, and that's a lot of fish. And as a dolphin might spend 2 hours getting a school of fish together, and then somebody comes along and drives straight through the middle of them, so they've got to start all over again.
Human activity in Koombana Bay has brought longer-term problems for the dolphins too.
50, 60 years ago, the fish were most probably double the size of what they're catching now. Though as time goes on and there's less fish around, they've got to spend a lot more time feeding and eating. They'll only breed to the amount of food they've got. We're annually getting between 7 and 10 dolphins born a year. 30, 40 years ago, it might have been 10 to 20 dolphins, and maybe in 50 years' time, it might only be 2 to 5 dolphins.
Unless we're careful, Steve believes the population of dolphins around our coasts will gradually diminish. Eventually, they may disappear completely.
If you look at the United Kingdom, there's only a few pods left there. 200 years ago, there would have been large numbers all the way around the coast. It's the human pressures that kill the dolphins off. In Australia, it's the dolphins that live in the estuaries and the rivers that are most under threat. We live around those areas, they're in close contact with us all the time, and it's those dolphins that we've really got to start looking after.
It may not need much to save the dolphins. Thanks to Steve Honor's research, we now know where they mate, where they feed, and where they rest each day and season of the year. With the help of the people of Koombana Bay, they can be given the space they need to live their long and complex lives.
I'd like to see the dolphins survive. I hope through the research that we do and through the interaction that we have, it opens people's eyes, it makes them understand what they need to be able to live with us. We've got a great opportunity to do that.